In this part, we are going to see some key properties about water and why it is important in our body. Because it's excellent solvent, it's liquid at body temperature, it can absorb and hold heat energy, and its evaporation will use that heat energy and participate in essential chemical reactions. All of these are key properties of water. If you are wondering about solvent, it's a liquid in which other substances dissolve, solutes any dissolved substances. Think, for example, in salt or sugar that are dissolving in water. So these are solutes and there are solvent. Another two terms we need to be aware of them. The first one is the hydrophilic and the second one is the hydrophobic. Now, hydrophilic, hydro is coming from water, philic it means love, so these are molecules that are attracted to water. Whereas hydrophobic, phobic it means like kind of hate, so these are do not interact or dissolve in water. Think for example like oil. Oil is non-polar molecule, so it's hydrophobic. It hates water, it does not interact with water. Whereas hydrophilic are polar molecules. Remember, polar molecules, it means that they have two ends, like the battery, right? So they have a positive end and they have negative end. Since water has also two ends, one positive and one negative, so these um, oppositely charged part of these molecules will get interact with each other, and that's what does we mean by saying hydrophilic polar molecule that are attracted to water. We will see some examples about these when we talk about the organics, the phospholipids, either in chapter 2, later in chapter 2, or even in chapter 3. We'll talk about the hydrophilic and the hydrophobic, the head and tail, and we will see like a direct application about them by then. Now, water is a great solvent for ionic bonds. Why? Because ionic bonds, if you remember, it forms ions, positive and negative. And since water has positive and negative ends, so it's easily can get attracted to these ions. As you can see here, this is in ACl, okay? And these are ionic bonds between NaCl, and as you can see, if they got broken, they will keep their charges. So the sodium, the positive, will get attracted to the oxygen, whereas the chloride, the negative, will get attracted to the hydrogen, since the hydrogen is positive and the oxygen is negative. So that is how, and that is why water can dissolve, for example, salt, because salt is formed by ionic bond. Water also is liquid at body temperature, which is helping in an important transport function of the blood, since the blood is around 90% or 93% of is water. So 90% of the blood is water. So, and it is very critical that that water is liquid at the body temperature. So this would sustain our life. Now, water within the body, it can be in two places, either inside the cells, okay, inside the cells, or in between these cells. So if it is inside the cells, it is intracellular space, whereas if it is between the cells, it's extracellular space. So this is outside or between cells, whereas this is inside the cells. So these are the two general locations of water within our body. And in average, we have a body mass of 60% that is coming from water. Also, water is helping in regulating the body temperature, since it can absorb a huge amount of energy. That is how we maintain our body temperature, and we prevent rapid changes in the body temperature because of water. And also when water is evaporating, it cools our body off. That is, for example, when we are sweating. Sweating is a process that we are trying to cool our body from inside by just releasing water. Also, water is very critical since it's participating in chemical reactions. In reality, synthesis of carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids produces water molecule, and breakdown of carbohydrates, protein, and lipids will consume water molecules. So these are hydrolysis or dehydration reactions that would lead to either making large molecules or breaking these large molecules. So water would participate in these chemical reactions. Now, the other material that we need to look at is the hydrogen ions. The hydrogen ions. And hydrogen ions are important because they will help in controlling something in our body is called the pH. Now, why hydrogen ion? Why do we make this case about hydrogen ions? Because it turns out that changes in their concentration can affect how our body working. So we need to maintain certain level of pH or of hydrogen concentration, since we did not talk yet about the pH. So we need to maintain a certain level of hydrogen concentration. So in our body in general and also in nature, we have two types of molecules. We have acids and we have bases. By definition, acids are any substance or any molecule that would donate or give hydrogen ions. So acid would give hydrogen ions. Base, in the other way, it will take or absorb or accept hydrogen ions. So if we have a cup of water and we put acid in it, then we will see increase in the number of hydrogen ions. But if we put a base, then we will see a decrease in the number of hydrogen ions, since base is going to accept or to absorb these extra hydrogens. Okay? So acid would increase the hydrogen ion concentration in solutions, whereas base would decrease the hydrogen ion concentration in solutions. And the scale to know the concentration of hydrogen ions is called the pH. The pH, it's a measure of hydrogen ion concentration in a solution. And scientists came up with a scale from 0 to 14. So 0 is the highest hydrogen ion concentration, and 14 is the lowest hydrogen ion concentration. I know it's a bit confusing because 14 should be the highest, but because of the equation of the pH, it has a negative value in it, so these numbers are inverted. So 0, it means highest hydrogen ion concentrations, excuse me, whereas 14, it means lowest hydrogen ion concentrations. So between 0 and 7, that is acid. Remember, because acid will give more hydrogen ions, right? So with between 0 and 7, we have more hydrogen ions in solution, whereas between 7 and 14, it's more a base solution. We have less hydrogen ions because the base is going to absorb these hydrogen ions. So around 14, it will be the lowest hydrogen ion concentration. And 7 is neutral. 7 is neutral. Like you can think of like 7.01 to up to 7.9. Okay, all of this is around the neutral. So this is the scale. When the pH value goes up, this is more alkaline, more base. We have the drain opener is super base, the bleach is super basic, ammonia cleanser, it's also a good amount of base. Whereas toward low, it's more acidic, lower value of pH, it means more acidic, like nitric acid, hydrochloric acid, lemon juice, stomach juice, or vinegar, all of these are very low pH numbers. Whereas the neutral is around the 7, maybe a little bit of 8, little bit of 6, but around 7, that is more of neutral, like a human blood and tears. And as we said, it's extremely important to maintain the pH of the blood around these numbers, around 7, because proteins, and we will talk about this later, are going to be unfunctional when pH changes. If pH changes, so they will stop working. So it's very critical to maintain that concentration of hydrogen ions in a solution. But how do we, or in the body, but how do we control that concentration of hydrogen ions? It turns out that, or it turned out that in our body, we have something else called buffers. These buffers would minimize the pH changes and will help in maintain a stable pH in the body fluid. So technically buffers can be weak acids or bases. So weak acids can increase the hydrogen ions, or bases they can absorb the hydrogen ions to prevent the changes in pH. In our body, the most important one is something called carbonic acid and bicarbonate. And this is like the major one that controls the body buffer system, or this is the most important buffer system in our body that controls the body pH, or the pH of the blood. So there is a simple equation there. This is the carbonic acid. The carbonic acid runs in can be broken into hydrogen ions and bicarbonate. Okay, and also the hydrogen, the bicarbonate and the hydrogen, the bicarbonate and the hydrogen can join each other back and form the carbonic acid. So this reaction can go in both directions, either to break down or to form again. So if this reaction is going between the bicarbonate and the hydrogen, and it gives us the carbonic acid, then the bicarbonate, think of it. What does it act as? Is it acting as an acid or a base? Right, it's acting as a base because it's consuming the hydrogen ions. It's taking them out of the solution. It's integrating them within the carbonic acid. So here, this is acting as a base because as a base, it has to absorb these hydrogen ions. Okay, so if the blood is too acidic, it means low pH and high hydrogen concentrations, hydrogen ion concentrations. So we need to absorb these hydrogens, and that absorption is happening by binding them to the bicarbonate, which will give us the carbonic acid. Now, let's see if this carbonic acid now is breaking down into bicarbonate and hydrogen. Now this bicarbonate, what do you think it's acting as? Right, it's acting as an acid Because it's giving us hydrogen ions into the solution. Giving us hydrogen ions into the solution would lower the pH. So this reaction in our body would go if the blood is too alkaline. What does it mean it's too alkaline? It means that the pH is high and we have low hydrogen ion concentrations. We have low hydrogen ions concentration. So we need to put some hydrogen ions into the solution by taking them from the carbonic acid. So eventually, the pH would drop and the hydrogen concentration would increase in this case. And here, eventually, we will have increased pH and less hydrogen ions. Again, in both cases, to bring the pH back to around 7. Okay, to bring the pH back to around 7. So these are the buffer systems. I'm posting another video, an experiment about buffers and how they can resist the changes or minimize the changes in the pH. So please watch it and also post your comments and questions in the forum about the pH. I will stop here. I'll give you some time to absorb all of this. As I said, post your comments, questions, and videos in the forum, and we will talk about all of this. See you soon.